How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? I just want to jump on here to give a little review before the final exam tomorrow. Just hit on the very essential key points since we didn't get the chance to do any review in class. So I want to start here. It's felt like a story. Start at the very beginning. We have to look at the causes and motivations for the age of exploration. So remember, at this point, European powers are interested in engaging in trade with not the Americas, they don't know that exists, but with Asia. They're interested in getting access to gold, silver, spices, obviously building their wealth. They're competing with one another, and typically they would have traded through land routes across the Ottoman, or where the Ottoman Empire eventually does develop in the Middle East here. But because of the Ottoman Empire, those trade routes have been limited, higher taxes, and so they're going to look for alternate routes. Additionally, Christianity, especially in this counter-Reformation period, is going to play a big role in motivating exploration, bringing Christianity, sending missionaries to spread Christianity throughout the globe. None of this, though, would have been possible without the maritime technologies of the day. And so we look at here the caravel, its technology, the sails that are used, able to control its direction, able to increase its speed, the rudder. You have the astrolabe on deck, being able to locate the North Star and then calculate your latitude so you know where you're going. Key innovations in maritime tech allowed for this exploration to really take off, because if you're not going to go by land, you're going to start going by sea, and that's exactly what we see. It starts with Portugal. Prince Henry the Navigator, his school, where they train people in exploring through maritime trade. We do see people like Diaz and then Vasco da Gama sail around Africa. Da Gama, in fact, eventually does reach India, and he connects with Asia. But we're going to see other routes as well, especially with Spain jumping in with Columbus. And I think the key with Columbus is noting the fact that same thing, he's motivated by gold, spices, finding a western route to Asia, not to the Americas, and also that his voyages are really just centered in the Caribbean. There's not much exploration beyond that. He's not going to North America, he's not going to New York. It's just within this region here. And his initial interactions, while cordial, they do quickly turn to become more and more violent, more and more exploitative of the new peoples that he encounters. While he doesn't acknowledge them to be Native Americans, he does view them as barbarians and backwards, and so he kind of uses that as a way to justify the behavior that him and his fellow Spanish soldiers and settlers, the way they act against them. And so what we find is that following the initial voyages of Columbus, within the next 10, 20 years, the Spanish are going to continue to send out explorations and expeditions. They're going to send people known as conquistadors, people like Hernan Cortez and Francisco Pizarro, to further investigate the area. Eventually, we will see full-on conquest, so they will target the large empires of the Americas, and they will, in fact, conquer them. And some of the key reasons behind it, you have the better technology, guns, steel. You have the alliances that are built with other indigenous people. For example, in the Aztec Empire, a lot of those indigenous groups surrounding the Aztecs were not big fans of them. They were abused, they were put through harsh tributary relationships, and so they worked together to help the Spanish conquer them. And so that plays a big role, and of course, germs and your diseases really deal the final blow. And those are spreading rapidly. Diseases like smallpox play a big role. Different historians will make different arguments about which factor played a more significant role. You might see a passage with multiple choice question where you might have to identify what the author's argument is as far as these reasons are concerned. Once we do see the Spanish conquer, we see them try and set up a system that allows them to reap the benefits of the new land they've conquered. The encomienda system is the classic example, and it's especially notable for the vast difference in the plan versus the reality. The plan is we are going to work with the Native Americans. We're going to protect them. They will work for us as indentured servants, and then at a set time limit, they will be set free. In reality, the conditions are brutal. The natives are put under extreme conditions. They are working in mines, brutally hot weather. They are being punished for any sort of thing that is viewed as not following their obligations to the Spanish crown. So if they aren't working hard enough, they're going to be punished. They might have their hands chopped off. Disease is running rampant as well, so the population's dying off. It is a disaster. So much so that even the Spanish themselves, especially the Catholic priests and the missionaries within the New World, within the Americas, start to call it out. And the famous case that comes up all the time that you should know is the writings of Bartolomé de las Casas. He writes this book, The Destruction of the Indies, where he puts it all out there. He says, these are all of the crimes committed by the Spanish once they've been over here in the Americas. We need to treat the Native Americans better. And so his main point of view is always going to be centered on improving the conditions for the natives. What's done is done, though. At this point, the two worlds are connected, the old world and the new, and we're going to see a massive exchange of animals, food, culture, disease, technology. And as we've seen in class, the Americas and the Native Americans are really going to get the short end of the stick here. We actually, as we look at the chart, are going to see the Great Dying. 90% of the Native American population is going to be wiped out within the next century. And in terms of Europe, I mean, they're going to get access to crops that they didn't have previously. Also, they're going to get the chance to grow a lot of crops that were in the old world, like sugar, like bananas we looked at, nutritionally dense crops as well, your squash, your peppers, whatever. They're going to use this land in the Americas to grow those crops and then have them traded back over, and it improves the diets of the Europeans. We look at Africa, we will see the slave trade begin to develop as well. Slaves are going to be sold, or I should say Africans are going to be sold into slavery and then brought over to the Americas. This is kind of all working within this system of mercantilism, this new economic system of the day, where it's essentially these European powers, Spain, Portugal, England's going to get into it as well. They design a system that gives them a favorable balance of trade. And so the way they do that is have their colonies export to them cheap raw materials, and then they use those materials to manufacture more expensive, more luxurious items and sell it for a profit. And their whole goal is to keep, like I said, a favorable balance of trade, and that really comes in the form of what they thought was very important, is having gold and silver stored away and having gold and silver used to fund their armies. And so that's kind of the big motivation here. They want their, as they show on the chart here, the mother country's treasury. They want to just have a larger supply of gold and silver. They use that as sort of a symbol that they are wealthier and more powerful than their neighbors. And so if we put it all together and we look here, we see a sort of triangle trade begin to develop. You see the cheap raw materials here, lumber, furs, rice, silk, indigo, goes back into Europe, gets manufactured, sent back. I mentioned the gold and silver. Look at what we saw with the encomienda. The mines that the Native Americans were forced to work in was to mine gold and silver so that it could be brought back. And they really put harsh limits on any selling of that gold and silver. So with that, we do then see, and this didn't really come up as much in class, but I wanted to point it out here. We do see that access to the Americas, access to those that gold and silver, is enabling the European powers to get more access to trade in Asia as well, in East Asia, and allows them to be more competitive. So we do see a sort of shift. Europe really wasn't playing a huge role in global trade, at this point. And now with the Columbian Exchange, with the wealth they're reaping from the Americas, they're able to now play a more significant role within the entire global system, but especially in Asia. So what I would try to do in practicing for this is I would try to go through these slides and go through the slides I posted for the lessons, and again, try to teach it, try to get to the point where you can explain the material. And as far as multiple choice, since the final is only going to be multiple choice, just remember your strategies. Look at the source first, see if you can connect it to anything that we learned about, any topic. Like you see a source from De Las Casas, you can assume it's probably going to be about the Native Americans needing better treatment. I would read the question before I even look at the passage. I try to predict an answer, have that in your mind going into it. And then when you do go through the answer choices, you'll have an idea of what you're looking for already. Use your process of elimination and go from there. All right.